Hello and welcome to Warblog. It's been a long time since I've done anything. I have done some things, but I keep saying, "Oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this," and so I end up always apologising. But today, well, long story short, I added a feature. I thought I have to do this. I have to do this, and the feature is basically drones. And what it became quite clear in my mind's eye was that if I add this drones feature, the war will suddenly stop. I've been meaning to do this for a long time, so I picked up just something simple from the Southfront site, and here it is. But just before I do that, I have actually added a news feature, this thing here. So news. This is actually, I'll just go into this quickly because it's quite interesting. Nothing special, quite simple really. But I did this because basically, well, for a number of reasons, but one of which, I do want to sort of keep momentum somewhere in this, and these are really easy to do. So, setting up a big game and all that is just time consuming. I can do these basically in about 4 minutes or 5 minutes because I get AI to do it. So in this one, I've got this Cambodia, and I obviously spelled it wrong, Cambodia. So what you get is this sort of map, and I used basically, AI doesn't do the map, but I used AI to create the interface. I just said, AI, I want to be able to create a sort of dynamic map structure, and I want to be able to have this. So I said to AI, I said, I want to be able to have an interface where I can just put the map counter in. It will center on a location, which is what it's done there. You can always move in and out though. Look, it's not particularly scalable, but it's got a little key. Basically, this functionality was integrated into what I call my Chrome. My Chrome is the sort of background HTML framework. So, and based on my own understanding of mapping and things like this, encoding and all the database stuff, and so anyway, I can now create these sorts of scenarios. Basically, all this is just written by ChatGPT because I can't write in a straight line, especially sort of when I'm not particularly compos mentis, so to speak. So basically, all I do, this is a bit complicated really, but I just create a front line, red line, just click, 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 double click, and it's over. Put in a line. Put in some labels, and this is the area. So we've got an active area to show where the battle's sort of happening, a red line to show the front line. So this is not a brilliant example, but if we go back to say some of these other ones, the siege of Bamko, it's basically just center the map, create an area of activity, front lines. These are their sort of berms and things, and just generally something to sort of show where it's happening. And I think that's quite nice. So I've got all these things sort of in there now. I've not done too many, but I could go on doing them quite quickly. And as AI is not particularly great, but I just love the fact that it's at least able to produce something. It's sort of like this is the Durand line instance. This was quite incredible already. It's this Pakistan, Afghanistan situation, and I spent about an hour trying to get ChatGPT to show a rocket coming in just before it explodes, and basically it can't do it. It shows them going up. It would show them launching up. It can only do launching up. It can't do the other way around. It can't do sort of like just before impact. It can't do it. You say, draw me a thumbnail, square thumbnail, of a missile coming in just before it hits the building. And it will show it launching from the building every time. And if you can get it to do it once, that's going to be a miracle. I mean, this was sort of hard enough go. So, but the thing is, at the same time, these are all good enough. For example, if you look at this, no one seems to be firing really in the right direction. These rockets don't appear to be coming out of the rocket launcher. This was quite a good one. But the thing is that they're good enough. So I've got now a news feature, and that was done quite a while ago. But the big thing that I want to get onto is this. So it's basically just a standard game. I haven't done too much on all the sort of bits and pieces. But basically it's just some Russian irregulars with drones, and I'm about to get into the EW stuff, but I just wanted to do this video first. There might be things that go wrong, because basically I've been at it all day now with ChatGTP trying to help me, and it's crap. It's not very good at complicated systems like Worblock, because there's so many different variables and moving parts. It just, it's not really good for that. I could have done it much faster on my own, but I wasn't awake. I got angry with a ChatGTP, and the anger sort of made me, oh, bloody hell, are you really this stupid? Let me just do it myself. But, getting that to that stage of motivation was something that I wouldn't have been able to do. But that's something else. We're going to play it. So what we've got now is this new feature. It looks just like the Air feature because it's based on it. So all we did is copy it, and I could have done that myself, but ChatGPT, I said just copy these, and it made a big mess of everything because there's so much going on in this code. But we're finally sort of there. So basically what we've got now is it's exactly the same as Air Power, except it's drones. So if you've got Air Power and drones, there'd be two sets of boxes. So in theory you can move this over into there, and it will move into the, we're now using that for what we call drone superiority. I'm not sure how the best way to do this would be, because I'm trying to replicate the implications of drones into this sort of field of war. So we can actually attack. So we can just use our drone if we want to attack this, and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, because he's in the thing, the drone superiority pool. But what we're just going to do, because I don't really want to sort of do much playing, we're just going to put a few more in there. So let's just say we've got 4, because we really want to go for superiority, and I don't know why that happens. If we reload it, it will readjust itself slightly. All that sort of just niggly things. I'm not going to do any movement because I can't be bothered. So we're going on to the Ukrainian turn. So now they've got their drones, but we've also, Russians have also deployed into the I'm trying to decide whether I did actually put 4 or whether that's I've been let me just end the turn. Yes, we had 6, then we put 4, so we end that turn. They do get some reinforcements at some point, so they'll probably start appearing soon. So we're now like on turn 2. But basically, if the Ukrainians, and I don't even know if this bit works, if the Ukrainians want to attack these units down here, yeah, basically they should get all those drones. So there's already something there that's not working, because I just wanted to get a video out there. So obviously the next time I'm going to have to go back to ChatGPT and say, you stupid idiot, it's not working properly, because these should all be air units, but that are in the air superiority box. Right, so basically if you were to because these units are in the air superiority box, if we try to attack this stack, we will have to actually contend with all of those air superiority units. So it'll actually be quite difficult, because we'll probably get shot down. So it basically reduces your ability to use drones, because there's so many anti-drone technologies. These are drones flying around attacking other drones. So it's just like, air superiority, but with drones, a lot smaller. So basically, in order to reduce that, which obviously is an error there, so you can't see that, so I'll probably get off this video in a bit and sort that out, because I don't want to leave it at that. There are other things I sort of wanted to be doing. But this is all part of my testing. So, but basically, you go into what is the drone superiority contestation pool, so to speak. So we drop these into there. Now we're going to fight for drone superiority. Now, obviously, we've got 4 drones in there. Well, let's just throw everything in there. Now, I haven't really thought of the balance here. I think, to be quite, and I can't even remember what the numbers mean, whether this is attack, defense, or I don't even know. I'll have to figure it out so we can get some game balance going. But in this instance, that's how they are. So what we do now, we're going into drone superiority. So we've actually got 5 drones against 4, but I think they're much bigger. So anyway, we're just going to attack. So Russia has air superiority with 2 drones left over. But what actually happened, it went through several rounds of combat, and I can't remember how it works, but it basically it cascades. So you could have a lot more than 8 rounds because there are only 6 units, and so what it does, it places one against the other. So what would have happened here is the Ukrainian unit would have fought a Russian drone, and the dice rolls were 7-8, meaning the Russians won, but the result was AA, attacker aborted. So the Ukrainians still have their drone, but they lost out on that. Now, it doesn't make a lot of sense with drones because, they're sort of one-offs. It's not as though it got sort of like a fuselage strike and limped home on a wing and a prayer. But for sake of what we're doing, it's good enough, and it's all I've got at the moment, and this is how it's going to stay, really. But it's just an interesting way of doing it. But the next round, interestingly enough, the Ukrainians, they got a 6-5, which meant that they were better than the Russians, so it was in their favour. So the defender was aborted, so that was a Russian drone aborted, so he'll have him in his pool still to use. Here it was 2-6. The thing is, it's not just the difference. You could have a 2-6 and it will be attacker aborted, because once you get this, you get a scaled different die roll that sort of determines what actually happens. So with a 2-6, it's going to be more likely that the attacker is eliminated, which is what it was. So the Ukrainians actually lost a drone there, so they're now a drone down. This was a drone aborted back into the pool, and this is a drone eliminated. Here it was a standoff, so both drones basically. That's an interesting concept because both drones are now still in this pool. And I don't know how exactly this worked out and what that actually means, but I think that the standoff means that he went for another round. But to be quite honest, I don't really know. Anyway, the next one was Ukraine got 6 and a 7, so the defender was aborted. Here, the Ukraine versus Russia, the attacker was aborted. Attacker aborted, so the Ukrainian was aborted, and the attacker eliminated. So what we got down here is 2 attacker eliminated and a standoff, resulting in basically the Russians actually having 2 drones left over in air superiority. So we go back to the game now. It's the Ukrainians' turn, but they have not got air superiority, but they've got a reduced amount of drone capability, and they've used all their drones up. Now, if they had a drone left over and they were hoping to win air superiority, they would only have 2 drones in the sort of drone thing to sort of, if they started to attack on these things. But if we now go along to the next turn, what you realise is that, well, there are some reinforcements in here. They've got 2 in there, but they've now got the aborted ones, which is probably 1, 2 or 3 in the standoff, plus their reinforcements. And now if you go advance turn to turn, Ukrainian turn 3, they've got 4, because they've probably got some reinforcements on turn 3, and they had the ones that were aborted, but they actually lost 2. So that's basically what we're doing, and what we're trying to do here is to replicate the impact of drones. And there's a couple of things there that I'm not happy with. For example, it's not like air power where once you've got air superiority, anything that takes off is shot down. Drones are a little more sort of, you could actually probably have both sides running drone operations that neither side can really spot. because they don't have big radar patterns. They're quite localized. There's also the fly-by-wire drones. I haven't got that in there yet. So what I was going to do next, and I've done this before somewhere, but I don't know, I can't remember, so I'm going to have to sort of really look into it and pretty much start from scratch on that, but it's not a big issue. But basically I have little EW units, electronic warfare units, that will go around. What I wanted to do, and what I sort of want to do, is, and I'm not sure that I'm going to do this straight off, I think the mobile, like anti-aircraft units, so they'll be able to move around, but they'll have 0-0 attack and defense factor in the traditional sense, but they will they'll have an EW factor. But what I sort of wanted to do was have one of these things, like you can build a bridge here, or you can lay mines here, or you can build earthworks here. I can't even remember what all these things do. But I wanted to have another one where you could build an EW thing, because if you look at the videos, what you'll see is they've got basically routers and switches and, you know, whatever in the tops of trees and things like that. And so what you would have is your engineers. I think I might as well just use engineers. I was thinking just using engineers as opposed to, say, EW units. The EW units, I think, would be more significant. To be quite honest, I don't know. I'm just trying to sort of get something done. You know, just having this drone interface is a first step. But because what we got here is you can have a small number of units, but you've got this massive, you know, the air is full of drones. You know, the both sides are just deploying as many drones as they can, and you've got the choice between putting them into, you know, drone superiority, because they've actually got, you know, dedicated drone units. I think I've had them for a while, but you know, sort of, you know, battalions, you know, that are then, they're not, you know, they're separate to actually sort of, you know, the infantry units, etc. And it's their job pretty much to run the drone operations. And you know, I think that they're more significant than the power, you know, the people on the ground now. And so what I'm trying to do is to make Woblog reflect that in at least some rudimentary sense. So already here you've got this sort of determination, you know, this idea, well, you could have had. So the thing is, what I'm trying to avoid is the situation where you put all your drones into drone superiority, kill all the other drones, and then you've got the rest of the game with drone superiority. So it's a case of balancing things out, I think, just for game purposes. So I think 3-1 versus 4-4 is probably unbalanced, you know, so, but that's something else. But also to have a constant stream of new drones coming in, because if anything, that's pretty much what they'll do. It's not like, you know, we've run out of tanks. They've probably got, you know, as many of these drone things coming in. So we could have each side having 4 lots coming in every turn. And we're never, I'm not sure we can really say how it's going to pan out, because I think, you know, once you get into the gamification of it, we say, oh, all you have to do is this and that, and then you win. But, you know, you could still do your interdictive fight. You know, you could still strike down here, and, you know, depending on how the factors weigh out, you know, if they've got an EW unit nearby, you know, your chances of success will be much reduced. But if they've got drone superiority nearby, these will have a chance of hitting you, but not a huge chance. You know, it will just be an added factor. So, you know, you could have, like, you know, if we go and sort of just start this game afresh, not that it really makes a huge amount of difference. If we were to put, at least this works. It's such a big problem getting this to work like that. Didn't want to do it. Let's suppose we do that and we move all our units around and etc. Now we don't have to actually do counter drone operations. We could just use all these, but we would have 4 of these fighting at us each turn. So it'd be really up to you. And if you're using your drones in counter drone operations, you're not using them on the ground. And that was another thing that, you know, became quite a big factor with the air power. And in the air power, it made a bit more sense, because if you've got, you know, these expensive jets, both sides are sort of holding them back and using them for air superiority, as opposed to risking them with frontline ground strikes where they might be shot down. So they're both trying to defend because they know as soon as one person gets air superiority, they'll be uncontested. And unlike drones, you don't get sort of like 10 new aircraft coming in every turn. So once they're used up, that's it. Fly them to a friendly country and leave them in a polished state, as opposed to use them and lose them. But I just thought I'd do that. I'm going to actually get off now because 20 minutes has passed without even even noticing. But yeah, so I'm still here, and I'm working on this drone functionality, which hopefully will make these situations a little more sane. And obviously also there's the news stuff, which it should be of interest. Just a little thing on the on the news stuff. Whilst the AI verbiage, so to speak, the verbiage, the words, isn't, I'm not even sure, I haven't even read this. It's better than nothing. It's enough to get you sort of tantalized. I mean, were the 37th Guard Motorized Rifle Brigade of the Russian 36th Army West Grouping involved here? I don't know, but AI seems to think they did. Maybe it was hallucinating or just got it wrong, or maybe it's right. But it gives you something to work on. And I think what I'm trying to get to here is, verbose. This is the situation, because we've got things in here, and on Seversk. So we've got this attack on Seversk, but they're still doing Seversk. Every time I look at the headlines, it's Russia's just taken Seversk again. It's not that it has again. It's basically it's spending like a year attacking Seversk. And I can't really go around just creating scenario after scenario on Seversk. No, I haven't got one. So anyway, I'll leave it at that. So if you sign up and play, then obviously you've got super duper drone functionality, which is slightly different to the air superiority functionality, and might appeal. So I'll speak to you later. Cheerio.